The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. We do that every single week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. We also have a really fun Instagram and LinkedIn presence where we're giving you quick news updates. We're giving you agency breaking news on who's winning, who's losing, new hire changes. So please follow us there. And on this episode, you will hear from Jorge Hernandez, founding partner and CMO of Majority. They're an agency based in Atlanta, and they're doing amazing things. They're about 4 years old, but essentially they stand out by flipping the traditional agency structure, ensuring 75% of its team, its core team, comes from diverse backgrounds, creating authentic and culturally resonant work. And it's catching the attention of major brands in the world, including Coca-Cola, Sprite, OshKosh B'Gosh, and the NBA G League. Their campaigns celebrate universal human truths. We talk about what that means. You hear it, it's a buzzword, but we get deep into that, all while addressing underrepresentation in marketing. You're going to learn a lot this episode. It's really good for the aspiring account people. It's good for creatives to understand the account background as well and learn from that and how to better that relationship. And also just Jorge is really cool. And Majority, the stuff that they're doing, the other founder, Omid, we talk about a little bit too. He had a really good podcast called Talking to Ourselves. Really good people there. So on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right. Jorge Hernandez, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing wonderful, Gino. Thanks for having me, man.
How is Atlanta today?
So we are enjoying the warmest weather that we've had in a week. A nice 42 degrees. Feels like summer out there. It's so warm.
You got shorts on?
Not quite.
Nope.
I wait until we get to about 45 before I put those shorts on.
Oh, they're coming out soon. That's awesome. Excited to talk with you. Big time agency, big time personality. You guys are crushing it. We're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about Majority. What a good name. Give us a rundown on who you are. What's your role at Majority? And then we'll get into the agency stuff. But you first. Who are you?
So my name is Jorge Hernandez. I am a founding partner and CMO at Majority. I am a CMO because I like to think I bring a lot of different things to the table. And Omid said, we're going to make you CMO because that is the vaguest of titles. It could kind of be whatever you want it to be, which I really appreciated. I am originally an account person. I would say that I tripped into account service as somebody who did not know anything about this industry other than wanting to know how to get into it. But I am very much a student of the industry, the discipline. I am a huge fan of what I think is ultimately what drives our differentiation and product in the industry, which is strategy and creative. I like to think that the best account people are ones that know that side of the game just as much. Because if you're gonna really be a thought leader, that's what clients are looking for. And you as an account person, if you're gonna be that tip of the spear, then you better be able to talk that language.
For sure. You gotta be a jack of all trades. You gotta specialize. You gotta do it all. And that CMO title is interesting too. So growing the agency, is that like new business development, outreach, the perception of Majority as an agency to stand out within the 15,000 agencies today? Is that the kind of the description there?
Well, I would say the first couple of things you said, as far as, the new business, I'm the first one that when folks reach out, I'll be the first one to communicate with them. But, it would be a lie / an overstatement to suggest that I am the one responsible for the positioning of the agency. That credit, frankly, goes to my founding partners, Omid, Farhang, and Asmir Davis. They have done a wonderful job. Omid, who started with the idea and realized that there was an opportunity in the marketplace to change the conversation of where agencies go and how work gets created and
Yep.
who lives and breathes in an agency with regards to what it's called and how it's categorized. And then
Gotcha.
Asmir, with her massive strategic brain, did a phenomenal job of taking a lot of that thinking and condensing it into these great simple statements that really
Love those.
resonate with the folks that we talk to.
Golden. Golden. So we got the strategist superpower, we got the creative superpower, and then you, the business executive superpower. How else would you define your superpower?
I think it goes back to being a jack of all trades.
Yeah,
I think
got to run it all. The glue. You're the glue guy.
and I appreciate you saying that. Other folks have used that term before. I take it with incredible pride and humility when folks say that. To me, I've always felt like the best way that you can contribute there's always the position where, as a manager, as a leader, you delegate or you set the strategic course and other folks get the marching orders. And then sometimes you're in a foxhole together and everybody's got to bring it. So if you can bring some level of creative chops and help, build a story, craft some copy, find different insights and ways in, if you can be somebody who knows how to, like, a little bit of production, how do you get something made? Like, that is the ultimate benefit, because it allows you to fill in gaps where gaps need to be filled in. And a lot of times they happen all the time, right? Like, you have folks going in one direction, folks in another. We have some capacity here. We need some fill-ins there. If you could be somebody who could kind of come in and out and be a little bit of a chameleon, you can fill a lot of gaps.
You are defining like the perfect account person. I feel like leader in this industry. You don't start out like that. So we will get to how you got to this level. We will have to build this up. Nobody walks into agency life post grad and is at your level. But when people listen to this episode, they should know that this is like an aspirational place to be. You are their benchmark. That's a good North Star to follow. So we will get to that. However, tell me about Majority. Tell me about the inkling of the idea, how it's grown into this massive oak tree. What was Omid's idea? What was the vision in the first place? Let's go.
Well, Omid, Asmir, and we're industry vets. We've been in this industry for 20 plus years. And despite all three of us being people of color, Omid is a first-generation Iranian American. I'm a first-generation Hispanic American. Asmir is African American. All of us have only worked in the general market space. None of us have worked in a specific multicultural agency. So for us, there was always this weird kind of disconnect between who we are as individuals and the fact that, like, we were like the exception when we knew how much our influences and our culture and the things that we're making from our peers are actually inspiring the general market. So Omid, in his very, for lack of a better term, classic training from Crispin, which is an oxymoron, because classically trained at Crispin is the opposite. There was nothing classic about Crispin. They were all about disruption. But that was the training, right? For him, it was like, well, how do I turn the industry on its head? So here's an industry who prides itself on achieving the goal of having 25% people from diverse backgrounds. So it was like, well, what happens if we flip that? What happens if we make it 75% people from diverse backgrounds? And we delivered a proposition which was a multicultural talent model that better reflects the audience that you're trying to reach with general market capabilities and expertise. Because the leadership is one where this is all we've done. So we have worked on 8 and 9 figure budgets and campaigns and clients on a general market level, but we've always had, because of who we are and how we've grown in this industry, we've always had that, like, something isn't right with this, like, general market versus multicultural. The truth is, it's an idea that was overdue. The data has been there for a long time. And Omid loves to say this, and I think it's a great line, which is, the best ideas are obvious in hindsight. And this is one of those ideas that was obvious in hindsight.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you look at the data, all the data suggests that agencies like ours should be the norm. They should not be so special. They should be the norm. We should actually, in a lot of ways, become one of thousands, because all of them should be striving to do that, simply because it's the right business based on the audience that you're trying to touch.
Love it. Love it. So tell me then, walk me through a case study or a campaign or some of the work that you have all done that exemplifies this tenfold? Like, is the bread and butter that you guys have done?
Well, we have we have a few. I'm going to tell you the first. I'm going to give you the first one that comes to mind because it was like the epitome. It was like our ethos, our mission manifested. So
Yeah.
one of the first clients that reached out to us was OshKosh. OshKosh B'Gosh. We all know it. It's the denim. It's the overalls. We probably all worn them as kids. We probably all have pictures of them as kids. Our parents definitely have pictures of us having them or them having it. It was a classic American brand. But when you thought about the visualization of it, it felt like Americana 1.0. And they came to us saying, we're not trying to find a multicultural solution. We're trying to find an agency that can help us be a better reflection of what America looks like today.
Wow.
But not in a way that compromises who we are or all of a sudden feels like we've lost who we are and our essence and our core. So we came up with this whole campaign, and the insight was really simple, which is all kids, no matter color, creed, socioeconomic, it doesn't matter. They all dream of becoming something someday.
Mm-hmm.
And with that real simple truth, we were able to think of different artists and celebrities that we could go back in time and basically celebrate who they are today by showcasing them when they were 10 years old. And those artists that we were able to identify were Outkast and Mariah Carey and Muhammad Ali.
Mm.
The beauty is, you know what they became. And you know how they became, even though they're all folks of color or different backgrounds or different parts of the country, they all became like general market cultural icons.
Yep.
Despite
Makes
their
sense.
color, their creed, it didn't matter. So being able to take them and what you know of them today and actually put them at a time when they were dreaming of what they were going to become and playing off of that was incredibly like satisfying. Because it was one of those things that gained a tremendous amount of earned media. Mm-hmm. And nobody looked at it and said, oh, OshKosh going multicultural. Because it rang so true. Nobody saw it that way. Mm-hmm. So it actually delivered on the brief. And it was one of the first assignments we got, which was like, this is exactly the kind of work we want to be doing.
Right. Were they wearing the OshKosh B'Gosh clothing when they were 10 or younger?
Yes.
Got it.
They were. And it looked incredibly natural. Because that's what you wear when you're younger. And they were anywhere between the ages of 8 and 12. And obviously, we wanted to be sensitive to like having some of the individual personalities come through. So, young Ali didn't look like young Andre 3000. They all had their little uniqueness. And you can see some of the flares in the beginning of like, oh, I can see how Mariah Carey at 10 years old was a little, I can see how this would have been her singing into the airbrush in front of the mirror. You know what I mean? So we had a lot of fun with it. And we stayed true to, like, this is what the brand stands for. So obviously we need to showcase some of the iconic elements that are true for the brand. But we also need to make sure that that personality that makes each one of them individuals and unique also comes through even at that earlier age.
And I'll tell you what, I mean, everybody's got dreams at any age. So even though it was a younger demographic or, it would appeal to me because I have goals and dreams and ambitions still. I'm sure you do as well. So that's like a human truth that not just kids, the secondary ripple effects of that insight could ring true with everybody.
And I just want to build on that because you said the word so perfectly, which is human truth. And I think sometimes we get caught up in like, well, there's a human truth. Now, what's the Hispanic truth and the AA truth and the Middle America truth? Mm-hmm. And there's not to say that there's not differences to them. Of course there are. We're all different. Yeah. But there are some very unifying truths that we could all lean on. The way we manifest them, the way we bring them to life, the diversity of storytelling that we bring to life to show the greater tapestry of our audience is where I think we really differentiate ourselves from other agencies. But the truth is, you can bring these to life and it's going to resonate with you regardless of whether the individual you're looking at looks exactly like you. Mm-hmm. Now, for those that have been underrepresented, seeing themselves is very different. But there is also not the reality of like, if you don't see yourself, you're not going to relate to it. We know that there's a level of underrepresentation that we had to combat, which again is why we're bringing these diverse faces into places that haven't been before.
So a formula could be identify the universal human truth and then put underrepresented folks within that imagery, and then that's just a winning duo right there. If it speaks, correct?
I think that is a formula.
It's something. I was just how I was digesting it right now.
No,
But
without question. I think your point on the human truth is 100% valid.
mhm,
The reason I said a formula is because we're not always looking to bring diversity into it for the sake of making sure that happens. It has to be authentic to the story, and I'll give you an
of
example
course.
of that if I may.
Yeah, please.
So when we did the work with for Coke last year, which was bringing the whole portfolio to life, and it was is when we partnered with Chris Dorer, the creator of The Bear, and we brought this whole 3-minute piece to life, which was essentially it was inspired by the Seven Fishes episode, and it was essentially this gentleman who was coming into this home for the first time to meet all the family and walking into a house during the holidays, chaos. You know what I mean? And meeting all the different folks and feeling the anxiety of having to meet the dad and all the different realities. And, you know, that was an eclectic group. But like, we didn't over rotate on like, oh, we need to make sure that every single diverse group is like represented here. Like, that wasn't the point. That story of somebody going to like their loved one's house for the first time and having to navigate chaos, like, I'm pretty sure we can all relate to that story. And sure, the visuals of it might be different.
Yeah.
Because our homes might be different and the things
Mm-hmm.
that we cook might be different and the way that they look might be different. But that truth of like, I'm just trying to make sure I don't fuck anything up because I want to
Yeah.
make sure that this woman that I love after this, all her family says, he's great, stay with him, versus
Right.
that guy's a loser, get rid of him. We all know what that feels like, regardless of color or creed.
Love it. Perfect example. Thank you. So then can we talk a bit? So we know a little bit about the why, the reason. Well, who are you working with today? What are some of the clients? Can we talk about that?
Sure. So, we're incredibly fortunate. We have an incredible roster of clients. So I mentioned the Coca-Cola company, and we do portfolio work for them. We have another piece that just came out that was directed by Kenya Barris, the creator of Blackish. We do work for Fanta. We lead the creative work for Sprite, which has been tremendous. It's amazing in a lot of ways. Sprite is one of those brands that pierced the culture by leveraging a level of influence into the general market that was not what you would call a traditional general market when we think about hip hop in the early 90s. We work with Unilever and Shea Moisture. We work with Mondelez and Swedish Fish. We work with General Motors. We work with the NBA, with the NBA G League. Our very first client, AOR client, was the NBA G League, and we're very proud to say that we're on our 4th year with them. So, one of the things that I really love to share is the longevity of some of the clients that we've had. We've been with the NBA G League now basically since we started 2 months after in May of 2021. We've been with GM since 2022. We've been with Coke since 2022. We've been with Mondelez was last year. Shea Moisture was the year before. We're looking forward to getting things started. We got our second campaign coming out with Abbott Laboratories. We're just kicking off some new work with Gilead Sciences. So
Big time.
Our portfolio is not reflective of an agency of our size or how little time we've been in the marketplace. I think it's a testament to our proposition and, more importantly, the people behind that proposition.
Absolutely. It's about the people and about the work. I love it. Great. Let's kick it to how you broke into the business and understand now, really getting granular, how you broke in, and then we'll get into all your best advice for anybody starting this business. So at what point did you realize you want to be in advertising?
So I've enjoyed advertising since I was a kid. I found myself just naturally kind of being attracted to it, and then like analyzing it, even though I didn't know that. Like, I just kind of did it. And what's interesting is I originally went to school as an engineer. My first place I went to school was University of Michigan, and I went there to study engineering because I really wanted to get into the automotive industry, which is full circle. Makes me really happy that I work with GM now because that was the brand. that I hope to work with. And I had an internship with a company, Amical Oil Company, which I don't think exists anymore, or it's become some sort of conglomerate or something else. And I was like, man, I really hate this. I really don't enjoy this. So I changed, and I changed to the thing. I was like, well, why don't you figure out how to do that thing that you seem to like, which was marketing and advertising. And it clicked with me right away. It's interesting. When people hear that story, a lot of them are like, wow, what a switch. And I'm like, I don't know, not really. I mean, that's kind of what we do. We're trying to engineer solutions. You know what I mean? I mean, I know that might sound like a highfalutin way to say it, but that is what we do. There's a lot of inputs. There's things that we have to figure out. There's an ultimate kind of end objective and goal, and you have to engineer your way through it. You have to problem solve through it. So in a lot of ways, it actually does match up. And because I'm originally from New York, I was able to get into this industry because I already lived in the city that was one of the meccas of this industry.
Right.
But it took me a while. I interviewed and failed miserably all the time. I'm a first generation. I've shared that before. And when I say first generation, I mean first generation born in this country. My mother and my father did incredible work here when they moved here from the Dominican Republic, but one had a 7th grade education, the other had an 11th grade education. So when it came to like guidance on what to do, there was no guidance. And it wasn't because they didn't want to give it to me, it's because they couldn't. So I really was ill prepared to enter the industry. I almost gave up on it, and I took this job with the Ritz-Carlton hotel company. And after a year plus there, I got close to the head of PR for the properties in the Caribbean and Mexico. And she had somebody who was a good friend of hers, and her name is Leslie Lefkowitz, the woman who was the PR woman. I will forever be grateful for her because she's the reason that I'm in this industry. She had a friend, her name was Livia Tuzo, another one I'm forever grateful for. And they had a AA position at Cliff Freeman and Partners.
Oh, yes.
And to me, I was just like, awesome. And I jumped all over it. I am embarrassed to admit, had no idea how dope Cliff Freeman and Partners was.
It's a Hall of Famer.
I had no idea what they were. So, go ahead.
It's a Hall of Fame agency. It's up there with Crispin. It's up there with like the mischiefs and majorities today. I mean, it's in there.
Well, I appreciate you. So I'm not ready to throw us in there, but you know, we're doing everything we can to be in that company for sure.
I'll start thinking that way.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. You can do that. I'll stay humble.
But Cliff Freeman and the wall of funny, not funny, like a lot of good stories from that spot. A lot of people wanted to break into that. It's like that's a hot shop at the time.
It was amazing, and I had no idea what I was doing. And what's funny about that is me not knowing what I was doing, I think, is the reason why I am where I am today, to go back to the whole, like, you didn't get there overnight. So I go to Cliff Freeman, and I'm there for a couple of weeks, and the accounts I'm working on are Salsa Tequila, Hollywood Video, and Fox Sports. Damn. And we get a brief on Salsa Tequila. So I go back into my office, and I start writing scripts and thinking of ideas, and I come up with all this stuff, pages of it.
Yeah.
And I share it with my boss, who's account supervisor, and she looks at me and she's like, "Cool. So we have a department for that."
Yeah. Like, why are you doing that? Yeah.
Job numbers, the budget, making sure the status report is updated every week, and dubs and shipping. That is your job. Now, because I didn't know what an account person does, I didn't approach my job like a traditional account person, which, to be honest, made me a pretty shitty account person, if I'm being completely honest. But because I was all about the ideas, at a place like Cliff Freeman, it kind of endeared me to the creatives, you know? And because I started at Cliff Freeman, I never thought of account as the group that is supposed to make sure that the hours are not burning too hot, or that your P&L is right, or how close are we to the scope? To me, it was always like, are we creating the best ideas we possibly can to land in culture in a meaningful and memorable way? That was the job. Yeah. And then I went to other agencies. And I said, right, thank you for the exactly. And I had that mentality, and other places were like, dude, you're like, I don't even know what to do with you. But the same thing actually applied, which was the creatives at other agencies were like, well, this account guy gets it. Like, this is the guy that I want, like, on my team or presenting the ideas or fighting for the ideas. Now, again, if I'm being fair, there is a certain level of tact you need to have as an account person, which I had to learn over time.
Yeah.
I did not know that right away. And there was a couple times or a couple hundred times that I put my foot in my mouth and then I proceeded to put the other foot in my mouth. But it did teach me the importance of the ideas and that being the ultimate product that we have. And then it made me, because I just had an inclination for it. And the truth is, if I knew what I was doing, I probably would have gone down that path. You know, but the last thing you do as a first generation who went to college and paid for college and pays good money for college is to then go to school and pay more money to learn another thing. That's just not the way. That's just not the way.
Oh, so you're talking about like portfolio schools and higher education?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You know, and I'm going to do some name dropping, but you know, the folks that were at the agency. So talk about like being paid to learn the game. So here were the folks at Cliff Freeman while I was there. Eric Silver, obviously Cliff Freeman. Eric Silver, Wayne Best, Jason Gaborio, William Gelmer, Guy Shelmerdine, Dan Morales, Grant Smith, Rick Ardita, you know, Rick Carducci. Like, it's a ridiculous list of talent. And I got to sit in the meetings, Dan Keller, Mark Schruntick, Adam Chasnow, like, and I would just soak all this in, and I didn't even realize what I was surrounded by. I did eventually, obviously, when I realized and I learned more about the industry. So that was the beginning of like my philosophy as an account person, and the fulfillment of it was really when I finally got to an account director level. And this is when I was in Colorado. Because I no longer had to be the account person who knew how to do the project management stuff. As an account director, you're now more responsible for thought leadership.
Yep.
And what clients want is not an account person, in my opinion, is not an account person who's making sure that they know like where their scope is and stuff. Yeah, that's part of it, man. But you know what? If you're providing me with thought leadership, I'm going to be okay with the scope and paying you more, because the value is there. The worst is when you're an account person and every time you talk to the client, it's about scope or hours or timing.
Boring.
You know what I mean? Like, I am hiring you to help me push my brand forward. Can you bring me strategic direction and ideas that does that? And if you can't, can I talk to somebody who can? You know, so once I got more senior, where all of the project management responsibilities were no longer on my plate, that's when I started to kind of become what I like to think I am today.
You got to push through, like, and you did it. Like, I saw that ecosystem. I saw those layers and like the timesheets, the tracking and all that stuff, and the gunk of the AAE position. So for our listeners out there will be a learning period, right? Like, you kind of have to go through that, you know, focus on the ideas as well, keep pushing through. But eventually you'll get promoted, and you'll get to that thought leadership level where you can probably you can thrive further. I think that's really good. Like, there's a light at the end of the project management tunnel. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and if I could build on that, and thank you, because I know that this is for folks, you know, again, breaking and entry into the industry. The other thing, and I kind of skipped over it. So I went from Cliff Freeman to an agency called Agent 16. It was Mazina Brown and Agent 16 to work on Camel. And it was right when the gauntlet had dropped on the tobacco industry. So I went from Cliff Freeman to this place that could no longer do TV, couldn't do radio, couldn't do the type of work that we did at Cliff Freeman. You could do direct mail. You can do one sheets, which is basically the postings outside of like a gas station or a C-store. And you can do interactive. It was the beginning of CRM. So with the Camel Cash and the Marlboro Miles, if you remember that. So even though from a creative perspective, I was like, man, this isn't what I was experiencing over there. From a skill set perspective, it opened up my eyes to a completely different world that has become foundational to so many marketers, which is CRM.
Yeah.
You know, it was the beginnings of that. It was the airlines and the tobacco that really kicked that off. And then when I moved to Denver and I worked with Coors Brewing Company, I learned what you call the below the line. So shopper, customer, promotional marketing.
A little more direct, yeah.
Yeah. And I realized how important that is and how important it is for you to have the distribution and those relationships in place. And when you have a partnership, what it means for a retail activation versus whether you're doing a commercial for it or not. So even though I think of Cliff Freeman as like the creative spark, the foundation from a like what is ultimately the product that is most important for you to like support and to advocate. All those other things help me bring a level of integrated marketing to the table. So when I talk to clients and I'm pushing the creative envelope, understanding the importance of customer, as in like a Walmart or a Kroger, and bottlers, they lean in because they realize that you're just not thinking about the creative through the lens of like what's going to be the dopest creative that's at the highest end of the funnel. It's like, no, how can we bring that creative to life in a 360 manner? Because I know all these stages. And the truth is I would have not known that unless I just kind of embarked in these new adventures. So I guess it's just my way to tell folks, never think like no experience. I shouldn't say no experience is a bad experience, isn't a bad experience, because some are, but they're all valuable.
You're gonna learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Either it's teaching you something you love or it's teaching you something to stay away from. Either one is valuable.
Love it. Jorge, this has been great. I want to finish this off with just like your favorite story in advertising. Like at Cliff Freeman, was there something funny that happened? Did you mess up? Did you have a major win? Paint us that picture. Maybe the best learning moment that you had in your career. Come on, give us it. You've worked with amazing people. Share it with the listeners, please.
Wow. My favorite story. All right. I'll you know what? I think my favorite story is not one. It's a compilation of them. And I'm gonna do a little recency bias. But my favorite story is majority. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm not going to, that sounds very like, oh, come on, dude. Like, give me something better than that. But I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So for so many of us who come from diverse groups, but didn't see ourselves as like we saw ourselves as more than like our diversity. We saw ourselves as like more eclectic and kind of more complex souls. So we would work in general market advertising or we wouldn't, we wouldn't just want to go down that singular path. Inevitably, when we were in those organizations, and I'll tell you a story, and I won't mention the names, but like I remember once we were pitching a client, and the client wanted to make sure that we had enough Hispanic representation. This was a different time and place. Even though I wasn't working on the pitch or the client, they wanted to make sure that they got me on video for the video for the client speaking Spanish, and it was solely performative. And it made me feel like dirty. Like it made me feel like incredibly just ill. I don't want to say great, but that's
like used. Yeah.
Used, yeah. And all of us have felt that in some way, shape, or form. It's the whole like, hey, let me take the picture and let's make sure that all the people of color in the front so you can see that we have diversity. Mm-hmm. We see it all the fucking time, flat out. Here, one of the first things you hear when people have been here for a couple of months is, thank you for creating a space where I can actually be my authentic person and not feel like I have to like either be somebody else or hide something or be something that I'm not. Like there's a lot of folks like we're complicated souls. Like, African Americans listen to country music. I'm a big NASCAR fan. Like I didn't like bringing that up and being like, really? You're a NASCAR fan? Like you're Latino. Latinos don't watch NASCAR. It's like, what the hell does that mean? You know what I mean? So there is a level of like freedom and comfort that people feel here. And when you see it in their faces, it reminds you why you started this.
Love it.
Because of the people and what it means for them to be in an environment where they could be 100% their authentic selves and not have to be performative or represent an entire freaking group of people. Like right. You're one of the AA people in our team. So you now represent all of AA. That's an incredibly uncomfortable position to put anyone.
Right.
Anyone.
Right.
So I'll share that one with you.
I like that. How can people connect with you? Or if marketers are listening, they want to work with you, what's the way to go?
LinkedIn is the best way for me. I'm not super active on social for a variety of reasons. Uh,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is a place to reach out. You can reach out by emailing contact@majorityagency.com. And frankly, I'll be honest with you. I do try to connect with folks as best as I can. I'd be lying if I said I was 100% compliant on everything. But
Yeah.
especially when it comes to folks that are just reaching out and they're just trying to figure out how to get into this industry, and they're looking to talk to somebody who, they feel like they can connect to. And the truth is, you said it earlier, Gino. You said the whole thing about, for those double AEs, like you kind of have to push through these things. A lot of times I will say it to folks, it's like, I totally hear you. You've been marginalized, you've been overlooked, you've had to deal with unconscious bias, and all of that is true. But I'm also telling you right now, when you do finally crack that opportunity, you're going to have to bust your ass. And that's just the truth. And it's a hard, and I don't want to say painful, but trying and challenging route and path. But you know what? What we do is incredibly special, man. Like, you love telling people what you do. When you put out a piece of work, like we are now with West Side's Finest, or last year with New Guy, or Hip Hop's 50th with Sprite, you can't wait for people to ask you what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's special. And that's worth working for.
Love it. Wonderful job, Jorge. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope people reach out. You guys are going to keep on crushing. I'm not worried about that. I can't wait to follow along even further.
Hey, Gino, thank you so much. Hopefully that was good. Hopefully I didn't meander too much. But...
No, you crushed it. You crushed it. I hope people reach out, and thank you for coming on, Jorge.